And what we're always striving to do at USU Soccer is to see how can we continue to not only grow the game, but to improve the experience for those that are involved in youth soccer. The main ones being the players themselves, but also for the other participants. And one of the things that I'll get into in this presentation, and that we want to talk about with all of our clubs and state associations, are the 4 pillars that support youth soccer. There are 4 adult pillars that support youth soccer: the parents, the administrators, the coaches, the referees. Those 4 adult groups are the ones that have to work more in unison than what we have typically in the past, and it's still going on across the country. The more that we work in unison among those groups of adults, many of whom are wearing many of the same hats, or different hats. You know, that administrator is also many times coaching or being a referee. It's not all that often that we have in youth soccer somebody wearing just one hat and they're just a coach or just a referee. And the more often that we get those groups together, having dialogue with one another, hearing some of the same messages, understanding some of the same philosophy and methodology as to what we want to have in our youth soccer environment, then the better the experience becomes for everyone over time. A couple of the goals being by improving that experience. First and foremost, player retention. We want to impact that dropout rate that we have in youth sports, and youth soccer is not an exception. One of the things that we talk about in the National Youth License course and some of our other coaching education is the dropout that occurs. The studies that have been done that are unfortunately outdated, but we think that the information is still valid for the most part now. And that's telling us that in team sports in particular, all team sports, the dropout rate between ages 12 to 15 is about 70%. So in that 12 to 15 year age range is when kids are making their decisions often, whether it's to drop out of sport altogether, or maybe they're playing 2 or 3 sports and they're now narrowing it down to 1 or 2. Some of them are dropping out of sport altogether. The reasons vary a whole lot, but some of it has to do with the experience that the child had. What was the coaching like? If the coaching was overbearing, if there was too much pressure put on the child, then that's some of the reasons that some of them are dropping out. Some of the reasons they drop out are things that we have some control over. Some of it's direct control over, some of it's indirect control over. So this is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish, is to reduce that dropout rate. If we retained more of our players, and if your club had as many U16 teams as it does U6 teams, the whole youth soccer environment would be healthier. From a business point of view, your clubs would be in a better condition because you would have that continuing revenue stream of tuition, of player fees coming in to help drive things. Numbers speak to businesses to support your club. So if you had that volume all of a sudden began to increase by a third or double because you're retaining players, now you're getting more attention from governments in terms of facilities and cooperation, and businesses in terms of maybe sponsorship, what have you. Okay? So there's a few practical reasons as well as kind of philosophical, altruistic reasons as to why we want to impact that player retention, as one of the things that we're always trying to do in USU Soccer. So with that, to impact that youth soccer environment, we're talking about, on my side of the house, how do I go about educating coaches? How do I get in particular to that grassroots coach, that novice coach? Well, that's predominantly through the club directors of coaching, because they tend to be a little bit more stable in that they're on the job for a relatively long period of time. I've got a point of contact. I've got, in addition to the state technical director, I've got a local point of contact to be able to deliver information to help support the work that they do. The difficulty is, for us, for a state office, for the national office, is the volunteer coach, the novice coach, tends to be a quick turnover. Tends to be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year cycle for most of our volunteer coaches, and then they're out for a number of reasons. Their kid quit soccer, and so they're out altogether. Their kid has moved up an age group or up a division of competition, and the coach no longer feels that he or she knows enough about the sport to be able to coach them at that higher level. So we've got this turnover, and that's one of the things that we want to impact in regards to coaching retention and coaching education. So that's a lot of what I do on my side of the house. The administrative marketing side of USU Soccer tries to help our clubs in those realms. For more retention of some of the other adults involved, team managers, club board of directors, the marketing side, the communication side. So I'm going to use a lot of what I do in regards to coaching education, because this is what coaches do, develop players. That's our only product, if you will, in U Soccer, are the players that we produce. If we were in South America or Europe, that's in fact how our soccer clubs would be making money. They would develop players at a certain age, probably around age 15 or 16 or 17. In many cases, the player was good enough, they would literally sell that player to a professional club, and there would be income coming from back into the club for that. That's not allowed in the United States by federal law. You can't touch them until they're 18, until they're legally an adult. So even with our, as an example, even with our under 17 national team residency programs, they can't sell that player to a professional club if he or she is 17 years old. They be in U.S. Soccer. So that model is a little bit different here. But still, our product are players. Some of our players will go on, we hope, for a lifetime of participation in the sport. That's our ultimate goal for all of them. But for some of them, that's just at a recreational level, if you will. For some others, it's at a more competitive level. It would be to go off to the high school team, to the college team, to the professional team, the Olympic development program. That's another slice of those players. But I'm using, I hope, what I'm going to talk about in regard to the environment that we need to have to impact player development. Now opens up for how does that happen? Because those four groups that we talked about a minute ago, the referees, the coaches, the administrators, and the parents, all impact to different degrees the development of those players. They all have a role to play in the development, the impact upon the kids. So one of the things that we talk about to clubs all across the country, and this part is getting better. As I go around and teach the National Youth License course, years ago, 7, 8, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I asked this question to a room full of coaches, how many of your clubs have a plan for player development? How many clubs have a curriculum for player development? Maybe one or two hands would go up. Now it's 50%, 60% of the hands go up. They've got something that they can use. The next phase for some of them is actually implementing it. They might have it, but it's sitting on a shelf. And not actually being implemented or being followed up upon on a regular basis to know that the coaches are doing it. So this is similar to a school has a curriculum. Well, one of the main roles of a principal is to go around from time to time to the classrooms and check on the teachers. How are they doing their job of teaching? Are they following the curriculum? Show me your lesson plans. Well, that's one of the roles of a club director of coaching, is to follow up with the coaches in the club. Are you implementing our scheme for development, our curriculum for development of the players? Let me see your lesson plan every now and then to see, is it reflecting what we're supposed to be doing, or are we at the stage of development for the age group that we think we should be at, that we kind of set out for ourselves. So having that scheme for development for all the players is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish now. It has to take into account the factors, all of the factors that affect the development of soccer skill. And soccer skill I'm using as a broader heading here, meaning not just their ball skills, their tactical awareness, their psychological strength of competition, their fitness level, their nutrition, all of those things that impact an athlete to be a top-level soccer player. So, what are those factors that impact soccer skill? Well, at the top of 12 o'clock, you see the coaches' derived objectives. This comes from the curriculum, but it also comes from a little bit of match analysis on the part of the coach. I've got my curriculum, but that's just to give me the stages I should be at. I don't have to be a slave, if you will, to the curriculum. I have to be so locked into it that I can't be a little bit flexible with it, because some groups of players aren't going to be quite ready for that stage of the curriculum. Some are going to go beyond that stage of the curriculum, be ready for a little bit more. So one of the things I have to do as a coach is at each match I have to analyze what's going on. Part of it for the match itself, when the kids get old enough that a halftime bit of information to the kids actually has some impact on what we do in the second half. Okay? That's very likely to occur from U12 onward. Below that, U10, a smidge, U8 and U6, halftime talk, okay? Is everybody having fun? Good, did you get your orange slice? Good, go play the second half, okay? U8s, don't forget, we're now attacking the other goal, okay? We're switching ends. You know, simple things, but U10, a little bit more, U12, we're beginning to get a little bit more complex. But the other side of the match analysis for coaches is, where's my group at, where are the individual players at, where's the team at in regards to their development? And now, how does that impact my derived objectives? Because that now impacts what I'm doing in my next training session. Is where some of that comes from. So it's a combination of